Yep. Good morning. Please stand and join me for "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple," number 16 in the hymnal. We're going to be singing through it twice. "'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be, and when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight, when true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed, to turn will be our delight, till by turning will come down right. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be, and when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight, when true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed, to turn will be our delight, till by turning will come down right.
Good morning. I'm Richard Steele, today's lay leader. I welcome all to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, including those who are with us in person in the sanctuary today, remote attendees who have connected via our streaming feed to watch the service, and those who are on Zoom to participate interactively from locations around the United States and Canada and elsewhere. We are glad that each of you is here. Today, we have a guest speaker, our very own UUCS music director, Madeline McNeill. This is a real treat because in her roughly half year in this position, Madeline has surprised and delighted by successively demonstrating new impressive talents, her stunning voice, her creative artistry, her inspired performances, and her totally out-of-nowhere mouth trumpet. And if you haven't heard that, it's a treat. Madeline received her BA in music from Western Washington University, focusing on opera, and subsequently participated in Oderzo, Italy, in opera residency at the Ezio Pinza Council for American Singers of Opera. She's a composer, a writer, and a philosopher who combines vocal training with breath modalities from yoga and meditation to explore how muscular anatomy is active in shaping emotional, cognitive, and spiritual experiences. Madeline teaches classes at universities and in the community, inviting participants to explore embodied concepts within themselves through voice and movement, topics related to her sermon today. She has an upcoming show, Bodies in Conversation, supported by a Spokane Arts Grant, and it's scheduled for February 24th performance at the Hamilton Studio. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Madeline McNeill. Whether you are in our sanctuary today or watching from afar, it is here that we join to create a nourishing religious home with a mission to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in the wider world, or as we say more concisely, to create community, find meaning, and live justice, or work for justice, some say, and they're both right. Now, please take a few minutes to greet one another.
Today, but someone brought
Let's see. There are two people that might be here. One is Evan, and I don't see him. And the other one is our yoga teacher. Her name is Greta, and I don't see her. Do you know Greta or not?
I didn't know you had yoga.
Not here. She teaches at the Spokane. So every Friday morning at 8:15. Start off. So I work half-time, and I arrange the hours so that it's Monday through Thursday, so every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That definitely works for me.
You know, Deb said that she might come a little bit later.
That would be nice. Yeah, this was great. I talked it up. I will tell people what to watch online.
Yeah, I love this. There's so many ways that I can spin off of. So it's so fun.
But
I'd like to do more.
I think there will be opportunities. We just haven't been talking with Todd about this.
I've been talking with Todd. I'm actually teaching a class at Western Washington University this spring. I'm going to drive my butt over there once a week.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be called Embodied Cognition and Breath Mapping. So,
That is an action.
no, it's a Bellingham.
Okay.
So it'll be a long haul for me, but that'll be the first time I get to teach a full class with this topic and doing all of them.
So how often do you
Once a week. Yeah. So Tuesday nights is going to be a 3.5-hour block. It's going to be a big long class.
Yeah. Well, good. That's, I commend you. And, it's good to have that opportunity. Once you have the course down, I'd be interested.
Well, I'm actually teaching this year Easter too. This spring, I'm going to do a seminar class. It's just going to be a one-day, so like an 8 to 6, but it'll be the same topic. So yeah, the ability to do like maybe a one-day thing, or it'll be a 1-credit class, or the one at Western will be a 4-credit class. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of potential to maybe dip into universities and teach one offer.
That's valuable. And it benefit to the students. Okay, what do you think?
Oh yeah.
We turn now from our informal greetings to formally begin our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, of our unity and solidarity, of our openness and inclusion, of our community and individuality. May this small flame be an offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in the world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt where it has been found. For our opening reflection, I offer the words of the cognitive linguist, philosopher, and university professor George Lakoff, who writes in his book, Philosophy in the Flesh, the Embodied Mind, and Its Challenges to Western Thought. He writes, "The problem with classical disembodied scientific realism is that it takes two intertwined and inseparable dimensions of all experience, the awareness of the experiencing organism and the stable entities and structures it encounters, and erects them as separate and distinct entities called subjects and objects. What disembodied realism misses is that as embodied imaginative creatures, we never were separated or divorced from reality in the first place. What has always made science possible is our embodiment, not our transcendence of it, and our imagination, not our avoidance of it. The environment is not an other to us. It is not a collection of things that we encounter. Rather, it's a part of our being. It's the locus of our existence and our identity, We cannot and do not exist apart from it. It is through empathetic projection that we come to know our environment, understand how we are part of it and how it is part of us. This is the bodily mechanism by which we can participate in nature, not just as hikers or climbers or swimmers, but as a part of nature itself, part of a larger, all-encompassing whole. A mindful, embodied spirituality is thus an ecological spirituality.
I'm following that reading with a song about feeling lost and not a part of anything. So this is a song that you can sing to exercise out some of those feelings of loneliness that you might have. You can please stand. It's number 97. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home, a long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I have no friend. Sometimes I feel like I have no friend. Sometimes I feel like I have no friend. A long way from home. A long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. A long way from home. A long way from home.
Each time we gather as a congregation, there are always those who are with us in our hearts and minds, and whom we want to wrap in our love and care. We light a candle for them this morning. And I'd like to start by lighting a candle for congregant Moritz Kundig, who, according to his daughter Sylvia Kundig, has just gone into hospice. Moritz is a longtime member of this congregation, a friend to many of us for decades, a renowned and a well-awarded architect, and the architect of this very building in which we are meeting this morning. We light a candle for the people of Ukraine who are fighting and dying to protect their homeland against the Russian war of aggression. And we mourn all of the innocent victims of violence, too often deliberately disproportionate and indiscriminate, in the Mideast, whether in the Gaza Strip, across the West Bank, in the Israeli state, or in Lebanon or other countries beyond. Let us share a moment in silence, embracing those who are here in our hearts. You are welcome to say their names, those named aloud, and those remembered in the silence we hold in our community of compassion.
People of Palestine.
Mary. Lord.
We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this community and its mission to the larger world.
For offertory, I'm going to sing a song that I wrote. Might get you in the thinking mood. It's called Solve for X, and there is an algebra equation in this song that I don't give you the answer to. So it'll get your mind going to do a little algebra. Here we go. In the deep, dark recesses of my apartment, I think about the things that I can't be, and I wish I could figure what to do about it. I want to solve for me. Solve for me, I'd say I'm intelligent. The variables are there, I just gotta work them like 3x plus 4 equals 7. Now I just gotta solve for x. Solve for x, move the 4 right over, and all you gotta do is divide by 3. I'll stare into space until I get it. I want to solve for me. Solve for me, move the 4 right over, and all you gotta do is divide by 3. It's just so simple, then why can't I get it? Why can't I solve for x? I solve for x, I'm gonna keep a trying, I'm not gonna stop, I don't care what you say, well maybe for a minute I'll stop and rest. I'm going to solve for x, mouth trumpet. And I wish I could have figured what to do about it. I want to solve for me. Oh, solve for me. I'd say I'm intelligent. The variables are there. I just gotta work them like 3x plus 4 equals 7. Now I just gotta solve for x. I solve for x. I'm gonna keep a trying. I'm not gonna stop. I don't care what you say. Well, maybe for a minute I'll stop and rest. I'm going to solve for x. I'm going to solve for x. I'm going to solve for x. Anybody get the answer? One. Oh, you got it. Good job.
Well, Madeline, thanks for warming us up with that song. Kids, come on down for the story for all ages. And this morning's time for all ages is not so much a story as it is a participatory exercise. So adults, just find a comfortable position in your chairs, and kids, find a comfortable position sitting cross-legged or on your knees. Madeline is going to be talking quite a bit later in the service about breath and bodies, and in Children's Chapel today, we're actually going to do some yoga to connect with our own bodies. So we're going to get started with some breath work. And there are 3 different kinds of breathing exercises that we'll do together. The first one is called a bunny breath. And we are going to take in quick little breaths through our nose and then let it all out. And this is the kind of breath that might help you feel a little more energetic because you're focusing more on the breathing in. We're going to do it 3 times. Are we ready? Okay, just start with a normal breath in and out. And now little bunny breaths in, out. Round 2, in, out. Round 3, in, and out. Right, those are our bunny breaths. The second kind of breath that we'll do is a balloon breath. And this is the kind of breath that might help you feel a little more calm, a little less energetic because we're focusing on the exhale. So everyone can imagine that you've got a big balloon right here in the middle of your belly, and you fill it up pretty quickly, like you might with a helium thing. What would you call that? A tank, thank you, a helium tank. So you fill up that balloon pretty quickly, and then just the tiniest little pinprick in the side, and it shrivels slowly, slowly, slowly in your belly. If you let all the air out, but if you just do a little tiny pinprick, we're exhaling slowly. So here we go. Let's do a normal breath in and out. Now fill up that balloon and slowly out. 2 more times. In, out. One more time, fill up that balloon in your belly. And out. Right. The third kind of breathing that we'll do is called a pizza breath. And this is a kind of breath that helps us bring some balance into our bodies. So we're all going to hold out our palms like this, like we're holding on to a slice of our favorite pizza. And we'll breathe in through our nose to smell the pizza. And then we breathe out through our lips to cool the pizza down. Are we ready? All right, inhale. And exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Cool that pizza. All right. Thanks for breathing with me this morning. Congregation, please join me in singing the children out to Children's Chapel.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
As we prepare for meditation, I invite you to find a comfortable position, relax, breathe deeply, and reflect on these words from psychiatrist, educator, and author Bessel van der Kolk regarding mirror neurons in humans. And mirror neurons are neurons in our own brains which are activated when we see someone else experiencing or doing something, and those same mirror neurons, those same neurons are being activated in their brains. Kolk writes, "It became clear that mirror neurons explained many previously unexplainable aspects of the mind, such as empathy, imitation, synchrony, and even the development of language. One writer compared mirror neurons to neural Wi-Fi. We pick up not only another person's movement, but her emotional state and intentions as well. When people are in sync with each other, they tend to stand or sit in similar ways, and their voices take on the same rhythms. But our mirror neurons also make us vulnerable to each other's negativities. So we respond to another's anger with fury, or may be dragged down by their depression."
That was an improvised vocalese with Mara, and it's always just a treat to be able to create music on the spot based on how I'm feeling in the moment, which will play into this talk. Embodied consciousness and the arts. Big topic. First of all, I would like to say it's been wonderful being here at UUCS as the music director. You've all been very supportive. You've given me a space to create and sing, and you've also given me a steady paycheck, which is a blessing of security, and it's meant a lot. I first came here in the summer to talk to Todd Eckloff because I was having challenges with the progressive left, which had been my home for many years. I felt deeply afraid to express strong concerns I was having, and I was getting pushback when I talk about the reality of the body in my work, particularly how the body shapes the mind. Todd has often talked in his sermons about postmodernism and its denial of reality. It's helped me a lot to hear him talk about postmodern culture and to meet with him over the past 6 months. I've been putting myself through a crash course on Western philosophy for the last 2 years, and my conversations with Todd have been very helpful. I wasn't taught much, if any, formal philosophy growing up. I grew up Catholic and went to Catholic school here in Spokane, then public high school, and then college at Western Washington University, where I studied pre-med. It was when the direction of my education wasn't helping me anymore that I began to search for something else. I was on track to do medicine, but I wasn't happy or healthy. After 3 years of college sciences, I took a year off, and when I came back to school, I decided to delve completely into music. I learned to sing. Singing taught me how to breathe and vocalize with my whole core. The voice is an instrument of muscle, bone, and flesh that involves much of the body, including muscles throughout the head and neck, throughout the chest, the sides, the whole back, the diaphragm, abdominals, and into the pelvis. The disciplined practice of singing taught me about my own anatomy and physiology, and eventually singing taught me how to become healthy. Because in order for this instrument to sing well, the instrument itself has to be well. Finally, in my late 20s, I began to excitedly realize that the musculature that shapes my voice also shapes my sense of self, that this instrument is me. There's an emerging field of scholarship called embodied cognition. It emerged in the 1970s and 80s. Embodied cognition is the second generation of cognitive science. The first generation of cognitive science came about in the 1940s and 50s. It was led by a dynamic group of people who imagined the human mind as a computing machine. It was then from the imaginations of scientists and philosophers and engineers and others that the beginnings of our modern computers were built. It was also at that time that these innovators advanced the idea that the mind is the brain, and the brain is a computer controlling the body. The first generation of cognitive science, from the 1940s and 50s, with the computer brain metaphor, began to be questioned in the 1970s because things weren't adding up. Namely, our sense of self, our experience of ourselves as emotional, conscious beings were not being adequately addressed by the science and technology being developed. As ChatGPT would say today, I am not conscious. It was around the 1970s then that cognitive science began to shift to include the body as part of the study of human cognition. Cognition being how we come to know the world and ourselves. Here are a few basic ideas of embodied cognition. The form and structure of our bodies contribute to how we come to know the world, with a particular focus on movement. Movement plays an important part in how we learn about our environment. Our bodies, which include a brain, are in relationship with the world, and it is through that relationship that we build and generate knowledge. In plainer terms, brains are not computers. A brain does not passively receive inputs from the world, representing it internally to compute symbols, to tell the body what to do. Instead, to quote from the book, The Embodied Mind, who was co-written by Evan Thompson, he's a neuroscientist and philosopher up in Vancouver, BC. The quote is, "Brains can be seen to operate on the basis of massive interconnections in a distributed form, so that the actual connections among ensembles of neurons change as a result of experience." That's the end of the quote. So, although there are areas of the brain that correspond to certain bodily processes, it's a mistake to think of the brain as having rigidly self-contained computing modules that individually process information. Rather, neuronal activity of the brain is highly interactive, distributed across many areas as part of a sense-making process as we, as whole bodies, interact with our environments. So, if the self is not a brain located in the head, then what and where is the self? Or perhaps I should ask, what and where is our sense of self? I'd like to propose some different ways of conceptualizing our sense of self, beginning with a quote from the book Feeling and Knowing by neuroscientist Antonio Damasio. "The nervous system, including its natural core, the brain, is located in its entirety within the territory of the body proper, and is fully conversant with it. As a consequence, body and nervous system can interact directly and abundantly. Nothing comparable holds for the relation between the world external to our organisms and our nervous systems. An astonishing consequence of this peculiar arrangement is that feelings are not conventional perceptions of the body, but rather hybrids, at home in both body and brain." Where I'm going with this is that our sense of self can be felt in our bodies and simultaneously be part of a hybrid process with the brain and the rest of the nervous system. It is this conversation of activity, I'd say, that creates a sense of self. I'm going to come at this and focus again on movement. Muscles are around 40% of our body mass. They need to move for their own health, otherwise they get stiff and strained and weak. There are also sensory receptors all throughout our muscle fibers, which chemically pick up how the muscles are doing, if they're warm or cold, relaxed, fatigued, contracted, stretched, in pain. And there are sensory receptors to help us determine how the muscles are oriented in space. So for example, if I put my hand behind my head and kind of wheel it around, and then strike a pose somewhere, by feeling the different sensations throughout my fingers and throughout my hand, I can get a pretty good idea of how it's oriented, which fingers are below, which fingers are on top, and I could probably draw a fairly good picture based on how the hand is feeling and the orientation. This is due to the proprioceptors and the sensory receptors throughout the muscle. So the same is true with athletes and with dancers. We can tell the orientation of our bodies through these movement receptors throughout our musculature. So these sensory receptors live within the muscles themselves and are always chemically conversant with them. This relationship gives muscles sensory properties. Just like skin has sensory properties, In other words, not only do muscles move, they feel. For me, singing is movement. It's movement from head to pelvis. I'd like to tell you now a little bit more about how the voice works, beginning with the breath. And to do that, I'm going to jump over here because it's easier for me to gesture to myself. Here we are. Thank you. Thanks, Todd. Okay, so now you can see. It's so interesting, the podium kind of stops from here. And this is how we are in like our desks and everything like that, kind of with the assumption that we're just like beings from here up. It's just assumptions that we make in our culture. So the voice is a huge instrument. I mean, it's half our body size because what we need to do to breathe is move muscles from the head to the pelvis in order to get our inhalation and our exhalation. So I'm just going to go through a little bit of the anatomy. We have muscles in the head, the tongue, the jaw. There's muscles in the throat. There's the soft palate, which I'll come back to in a second, but it's a dome-shaped muscle behind the top molars. It raises up and down. Muscles in the neck, muscles throughout the chest, in between all of the ribs. There's this thing called the diaphragm, which is below the lungs. It's attached to the lungs. We don't really have voluntary control over the diaphragm. It's kind of a misconception that we do. It flattens on the inhale and brings the lungs down. So there's lung expansion downward as well as outward. And then the viscera that's underneath the diaphragm goes down, and so we need to make room for all of these guts and everything. The belly goes out, the sides go out, the back goes out, and then down in the pelvis, the pelvic floor also moves. It's just right at the base, it expands out. We don't really have that much sensory feeling within that, but they're all moving together. And a point that I want to make is that they're all wired to move together. So an example of this is a cough. This is post-COVID, doing a cough example. It's fun. But if you cough, if you do that, if you can do it to yourself even a little bit, there you go, good job. There's contraction throughout the entire core. I mean, you'll feel it significantly in the belly. So in the normal progression of how a cough is formed, usually an irritation somewhere in here, this contracts, there's a reflex contraction. So there's a contraction in the entirety of this area from head to pelvis. And I would say that these muscles are wired in a lot of our movements. Anything from like laughing, ha 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 ha, or crying, ha 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 ha. There's all kinds of movements going on here. That song that we sang, sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I'll make the choir members moan. That usually comes from the gut. I'll have them say, I won't have you do it today, but I'll be like, all right, from your gut, contract, and then it comes out and shapes the sound into this moany thing, but it comes from down here, and it rides that reflexive movement. Now, the exercise I'm going to move you through is, and I always take a risk doing this, is a yawn. Tell an audience to yawn. I'm going to do it. What you do is that soft palate here behind the top molars at the top here, what you can do is raise it up as if you're raising it up and out through the ears and breathe deeply at the same time. And that might trigger a yawn. Oh yeah, see, you're doing it. Good job. Yes, we get it out. Yeah. So what that did is it created a reflex movement from head to pelvis. And I would say a yawn is like a big stretch. It's probably the biggest stretch you could do of the core muscles. And it serves that purpose, in my opinion. It is stretching the muscles that breathe and emote and do all of these things for us throughout our lives every day. Okay. Now, when I was learning how to sing, my singing teacher, who would talk up here like this, Maddie dear, move into a half yawn. So that's a movement that's the same movement, head to pelvis, as the full yawn, but it's not as big. It's kind of just a halfway. So what it looks like is this. And you can see it in the face, right? But there's expansion in the throat, there's expansion in the ribs, in the belly, down all the way through the pelvis. So if I ask you to half yawn, inhale, and then exhale, it'll sound like this. And I'd like you to all to do that with me if you don't mind. A half yawn, head to pelvis movement, and then exhale on an ah. Ready? We'll do it together. Inhale. Yeah. It's such a beautiful sound because I can hear in the quality that it was prepared well, or in that I mean it was prepared with an inhale with movement from head to pelvis. Okay, I have some choir members in the audience, so I know you'll do this with me. I'd like to extend that and make that into a vocalized ah. So we'll do it on this pitch, ah, and we'll do it 3 times. We'll inhale with a half yawn pose and exhale on an ah 3 times together with a breath in between. So here we go. Inhale, half yawn. Ah, and inhale, head to pelvis, and exhale. Ah, and one more time. Inhale. Ah, okay, lovely. So you're getting a sense, I hope, that the instrument here that I'm talking about, the voice, is this big and includes muscular movement throughout. I'm going to give you now a little bit about voice technique. This applies to all singers. I learned it learning how to sing opera. What it is, it's a little trick. It's a big trick, actually. What it is when I inhale, this diaphragm is kind of like a rubber band. It flattens on the inhale, pulls the lungs down, but it wants to spring back up. So what I do is I expand the ribs by engaging the intercostals, which are between the ribs. The ribs are like on hinges at the spine. And when I contract the intercostals, the ribs go up. And I use the serratus anterior muscles also to keep the ribs out. That keeps the diaphragm from springing back up. So when I expand here and exhale, the abdominals take over. And I now have a lot of conscious or voluntary control to regulate the air, the stream of air. So I can do stuff like this. Expand, expand. And it's all controlled from here, a steady stream of air that's being controlled from down below. Now this took me 20 years to learn how to do. It takes a long time, and it's powerful. It's a great party trick. But that's part of the technique that's learned. It's very movement. I mean, it's all movement oriented. It's learning how to move the air, move the breath through the musculature. Okay, I'm going to jump back. Something also just to note is that muscles get tense. So muscles, they're like slinkies. The segments get closer together when they contract. They get further apart when they expand out. They're constantly going like this. Sometimes they get tense and they just stay tight. And that can happen throughout, the entire body, all the muscles, including the core. So I'm not going to get into it really this time, but I would say that a lot of the ways that we move in emotion, like laughing, ha 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 ha, it's shaking out the musculature, or crying, and it's bringing movement, stretch, circulation to the musculature that exercise these emotional states. Okay, so with an understanding of the anatomy and physiology of the breath musculature, combined with vocal training, I've learned to map human experiences in terms of what's happening in the core. For example, here's a philosophical question for you. What is yes? And what is no? What is it? It's pretty simple. Or is it? I'm going to theorize using my approach of mapping musculature. I would say the yes is like that half yawn that we did. It's an ah. It's like when a child is doing something good and you want to affirm them, and you're like, ah, good job, yay. It's like you prepare it with that big breath, and then the exhale is, it reflects that inhale of breath. It's prepared by that inhale. So we compare that to when the child does something bad, or if they're about to get into trouble or harm. We don't go, no, what do? We go, no. We might say the word, but really what's important about it is to stop the breath. The arrest of the breath stops the core movement, and a lot of our movements start from here. So if we stop here, other things are going to stop. If we stop our breath, because we can't live long without the breath, we have to be in this constant state of movement in order to breathe. Stopping the breath stops movement, creates a sense of pain quickly. And so that's an effective tool for guiding a child or guiding anyone out of harm. So, if a child is about to run into the street, we don't say, no, like that, right? We say, no. It's at this point that I like to lead the audience, if you don't mind, in a no, just to exercise it out, get the example. If we all do it together, it'll be fine. So imagine, kid's about to run into the street. We're going to say no together on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. No! There it is. Yes. Right. Good job. Okay. So we exercise these postures. I call them core postures, yes and no, learned from early childhood. Our parents guide us through these movements, and eventually, over time, we learn to do that ourselves. We learn to affirm ourselves, yes ourselves, and no ourselves. And then I would say, this is me veering into the philosophical, I would say that we learn to do this to affirm ourselves. We, yes, affirm ourselves and even our own minds. So if I'm thinking about something and I might be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And I might affirm myself, affirm my ability to affirm and be like, I am alive. I am conscious. And then I move into this, look at me, I am awing. So I would say that my sense of self-affirming, my sense of consciousness is a movement. This is my hunch that involves the body. So for me, consciousness is an embodied process that includes an it includes a yes. If that's true, if yes is part of how I affirm myself consciously, and if it's true from the embodied cognition perspective that our feelings are hybrids, body and brain, then it makes sense, it's helpful to practice my yes. It's good. It's good to practice yes every once in a while. So how do I do that? The improvised vocalese that I did before I began to speak is an example of that. And the half yawn, inhale and exhale that I led you through is an example of that. I breathe in. It has this chant quality to it. I'm going to begin to conclude and expand on some of these ideas. From the perspective of embodied cognition, when it comes down to it, we're all bodies. And in the spirit of Unitarianism, I would say that this is the commonality that we share. We yawn, and we laugh, and we cry, and moan and sigh. We share similar internal structures for generating breath and emotion and speech. And the arts help give form to these human movements individually and in community. When I think about caring for others, especially caring for their minds and their mental health, I've learned through my work to immediately think about caring for the core movement of their bodies. Again, the idea that feelings and emotions are hybrid processes of brain and body. I learned to think the way I do first through the arts, by learning to sing. And then I found out about embodied cognition. If the published research is on the right track, then figuring out how cognition works, I think, can be helped by embodied disciplines with experts accurately describing internal movements. This approach would give philosophy a different flavor, because philosophers would not be operating with the assumption that thought is a dissociated activity detached from the body. Rather, cognition, thought, and emotion can be imagined to include muscle movements and sensations. As far as the implications for the future of the arts, I advocate for good arts education and support for the arts that includes movement and vocal arts, with the intention of developing cognitive skills. I can sing a happy song, or a sad song, or an angry song, and learn about how to skillfully move through these emotions. I can orate a speech or speak a monologue. These all become meditations on internal movements and their accompanying feelings and sensations, so that when life comes at me, I am able to respond without shying away from certain emotions or becoming uncontrollably emotional. I know how to breathe. I know how to slow down my speech. I can assess the internal health and stress on the core muscles themselves. I know how to engage because I've trained myself to be internally attuned as an instrument of cognition. Which brings me to wellness and mental health. If my voice is indeed an instrument of cognition, then I should take care of the whole instrument so that I play well. Taking care of core muscles is like taking care of any muscle. It begins with knowing their needs. Muscles can't just sit still, they get stiff and tense. They can't overwork either, because they will also get stiff or tense or injured. There are healthful ways to exercise muscles, to rest muscles, to stretch muscles, to give nourishment to muscles, to train them just like an athlete builds a skill over time and ultimately makes it look so easy. The same can be said for a skilled singer or musician. The wide repertoire of arts, and especially for me the vocal arts, have become a vast landscape for exploring and developing who I am. Opera, jazz, bluegrass, acting are the mediums I personally gravitate toward, but there are so many others. And all of these mediums can train the breath, voice, emotions, and cultivate character. To recap the logic, if cognition is a hybrid process of brain and body that includes movement of the core, then practices that train the core musculature, like the vocal arts, will build cognitive skills. I therefore would also like to see more bridging with the health sciences, psychology, neuroscience, and philosophy with the technical expertise of the vocal arts. I'd like to finish by giving attention to a kind of singing that I particularly love and have loved since childhood, from my Catholic days. And that kind of singing is chant. My experience of chant began with Gregorian chant and polyphonic medieval chant growing up. Chant asks for a half-yawn internal pose. It also asks for a slow inhale, good preparation throughout the core, and then an exhale that is internally spacious. The words maintain the open internal posture. There are smooth transitions from consonant to vowel. Syllables are often drawn out. The practice of chant is contemplative. It gives space to reflect and refine the breath movement and the movements that shape our words. It is a movement practice that attunes ourselves as instruments in relationship to others, ourselves, and our environment. It's a practice I would like to see have a comfortable place in both spiritual and secular spaces, contextualized from the perspective of an embodied consciousness. Yeah, thank you. And if you would like, maybe we could all awe together one more time with a half yawn pose. On this note, let's just try that together, just to send the idea home. Let's inhale together, half yawn. Thank you. And now we're going to stand. Stand and sing and stretch your weary muscles. And we're going to do the song 326, Let All the Beauty We Have Known. Mara will play it through one time first. Let all the beauty we have known illuminate our hearts and minds, rejoice in wonders daily shown, in faith and joy and love that binds. We celebrate with singing hearts the loveliness of sky and earth, the inspiration of the arts, the miracle of every birth. Life's music and its poetry surround and bless us through our days. For these we sing in harmony, together giving thanks and praise.
For our benediction, I offer the words of German-born spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle. Be the silent watcher of our thoughts and behavior. You are the beneath the thinker. You are the stillness beneath the mental noise. You are the love and joy beneath the pain. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Thank you, Laura. Stellar as always. Too much.